of Hoyle and Tanner in presenting the Franklin Street culverts over Horn Brook. The full application and plan set that was submitted to the state also made it to our inbox, so I will pass this around so people could take a look. I'll share this direction first. Okay, the first group of notices. This is dated October 19th from DES for 74 Rockingham Road, Derry, tax map 5, lot 39. These two notices were that a wetland application, let's see here, standard dredge and fill was received, not an authorization to begin work. It's important because the next notice for the same property, again, 74 Rockingham Road, tax map 5, lot 39. This one dated December 7th, is a list from New Hampshire DES requesting additional information from the applicant to push this plan forward. There are 3 notations in the impact area, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the stream impact area, 4 in wetland delineation and existing conditions, and another 5 general notes. These will be required to be submitted within 60 days of December 7th, no later than February 5th, or the application will be denied and likely will have to be resubmitted. So those notices are all for one property. That is a plan we have seen, and the state is working through that. This notice from DES, sent in November 30th, 2022. It's for 21 Weston Street, tax map 17, lot 11-1. This was a notice previously of an alleged violation. This particular notice is noting that there was inspection, and it was determined that the property in question was in compliance with the RSA 48-2-A, and that there is no violations found on the property. At this time, New Hampshire DES is not taking any jurisdiction over this matter, and that is closed on that record.
Okay.
Okay, pass that down. Moving out of chair's report and into correspondence, or out of correspondence, we have a note on our agenda for Moreno update. That would be Charlie Moreno, our town forester. I had the pleasure of talking to Charlie this week as he needed to do some reporting on our properties that are considered tree farms with active forestry management plans. You may recall that we did some forestry previously at Doolittle. Charlie is doing a full report on that for the state because we do have an active management plan. And in fact, we had some conversations with RCCD to come out and take a look at some invasive spraying at the landing zone there. In discussions with Charlie, he brought to my attention that in commissions past, we had talked about Weber Forest for a very long time in terms of creating an active management plan for that. He did initially spend some hours out there marking trees, you know, not fully marking, but getting an idea of what was out there in terms of an inventory. That property was at one point part of the tree farm program as being reported. It has now fallen out of that status because it's not being actively managed. So Charlie and I have discussed putting some time on the calendar at some point in the next couple of weeks to reevaluate and maybe get boots on the ground to Weber, since Charlie hasn't been there, to understand how we could possibly get a management plan put back together and put that property back into an active tree farm status, as it is our town forest.
So, so Charlie will do that this winter?
We're gonna get boots on the ground and do a new assessment on it.
Okay.
I don't recall who was chair at the time. It may have been Paul or Neil. We had discussed Charlie doing a little bit of a timber harvest plan specifically for Weber, and we just never got that work over the goal line. With this, I call it an opportunity, having it come out of tree farm status. Again, not a bad thing. It's just, we just got to pull it back in with the new management plan. It likely will mean some type of harvest would happen out there. There are parts of that Weber Forest property that are extremely dense. So again, we're going to get boots on the ground on that property and determine whether or not a timber harvest, A, needs to happen, B, what the plan would be, and then what the management plan post-timber harvest would be.
Do you know what the advantages are for being a tree farm? How does it benefit us?
I'm sorry to say I do not know that information off the top of my head, but I can take that as a point to return that information to the commission. In fact, Charlie did ask if he needed to come down, or, but we can certainly ask him to do that and discuss that with us for sure. It would be beneficial to have him in person if we do determine that there is going to need to be some type of harvest out there, much like we did with Doolittle. We had, an initial walk, an inventory, manual tag.
Yeah.
You walked the manual tag as well. So because that process is very cumbersome, having the forester come back before us is best practice, in my opinion. So we would have Charlie come back, and hopefully we'll get answers on that question before then.
Okay. That's good.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see here. While we might need to fill time while I'm looking for something, would you give an update on the garden closure? We are either getting close or we should be done, correct?
Yes, we're done. I have not been over since the 1st of December, or prior to that, but most people were out and it cleaned up properly. I'm going to make a journey over there next day or so to see who failed to comply with the December 1st deadline. Okay.
First deadline. Okay, other points of business I had to pull up, and I apologize about that. We do have 2 active annual visits, one for Karis, one for Sawyer, that are being handled by CELT. So Jennifer Dickerson and I communicated via email. So we should be receiving by our next meeting an update of what their findings are. Again, they're doing some boots on the ground, some aerial monitoring. And we do have a report due for LCHIP for the Cornelius and Peach Orchard. Again, we're moving to a digital format with LCHIP. So I did already do that one in the spring. I am going to put boots on the ground again this week just to get eyes out there. I don't believe we've had any changes on the property, but prior to me doing a final end of the year report for LCHIP, I'm going to 100% make sure of that for sure. In years past, that was done by Mr. Bazanga. And I think the last year or 2 years I've done it. So
Yep.
In terms of most recent history, it's still fresh. So
Okay.
It's ironic to call it the peach orchard because all those trees are long gone. The peach and apple trees
no longer an orchard.
were removed a number of years ago.
and one other thing that did come up that has been on our list, but I want to address it because it did come in November and then we didn't have a meeting. We did have an abutter that was close to the Shepherd property,
Yeah, what?
and an abutter that lived near the Shepherd property
Yeah.
had tried to get into the back parcel and access a trail. And the old trail maps that we have for that property are really overgrown.
Yeah, very.
And it really needs to just have a brand new trail built. I'm hoping this winter with, leaves off trees and a little bit more ability to get in there clean. We've hiked it before. I know, Will, you've hiked it with myself and Mr. Bazanga at one point trying to follow the rock wall there in some spots. But to the abutter that did write that letter, and we did respond, but that is going to be on our list for probably this winter or spring before things
Yeah.
grow in, if we can get something opened.
Yeah.
Because it is a great property. I was out there doing an initial walkthrough, and it was funny because that's a property that we don't mow until a certain time of year because of the milkweed. It's a fantastic habitat. And you may recall that we did a walk out there as a commission because there was some culvert work done and put in there. And in that year particular, there was some mowing done early. I found a wooden sign. I was going to bring it tonight. Somebody wrote on paper and laminated it and staked it, asking us to continue to hold off from mowing it because of the habitat out there for the monarchs. And so whoever that person was that wrote that sign, we hear you loud and clear. It was a little weathered when I saw it, but it did make it through. But that's one of those properties, it's kind of a gem where, you know, it serves a fantastic purpose, but it's not really heavily utilized. And I think, you know,
Right.
we've got a lot going on around there. Be nice to have a little bit of a cleaner area to map out for the public so they can use the picnic area and then get back up to the field if they
So we
wanted to.
need somebody to do a new trail or a group.
Yeah, so I walked that property with Amanda, I can't remember her last name from Cell. We did the report in person, and we talked a lot about that this year, where we would put a trail.
Yeah.
So it just needs, it takes the manual labor to get done, that's
Yeah.
all.
Holler.
Holler, holler. It was like being out in the cold. Okay. In terms of business this evening, I don't think I have anything else outstanding. I know it was a shorter meeting, but we didn't have one. So before we jump, one conversation that we do need to have is we have the opportunity to potentially move our meetings from the second and fourth Monday to the first and third Monday. And if I'm hearing and understanding correctly, that request would be beneficial to our support staff that helps get these meetings live on TV and recorded. And so I was going to open that up to the commission tonight as a discussion point. Is it a hindrance to anybody to move the meeting to the first and third Monday?
No problem.
I'm hearing no.
No problem.
Hearing no.
No issue. I just think we would lose at least two Mondays, two first Mondays due to holidays.
Oh, yeah, the
You know,
holidays,
4th
yeah.
of July and.
Typically, not much goes on, well, in July, yeah.
So,
President's Day.
I mean, that's not a reason we can certainly
There are
work
some,
around
but-
that.
Yeah, I mean, next week, so before we move forward, just quick roll call. We okay with moving? Will?
Yes.
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 Grace, yes.
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 Okay. So,
We should talk to the other commission members that aren't here, though. I think that would be fair.
we certainly can do that. So, based on the majority in person, what I would say is when we have those conversations, I would lead into the fact that the majority of us said yes to so far. And the goal would be for us to do that starting in the new year. Now, the final meeting in December for us would be the 26th, which I don't see me making that meeting. I don't see many of us making that meeting due to the holiday. And I don't think we'll have an applicant squeaking in the day after Christmas.
Town hall's closed anyway.
Right. So I would say that we can certainly do that, but we should plan on having a final answer to DTV, likely in the affirmative, by that next scheduled meeting, which ultimately will not happen. So you will know prior to the 26th. Does that make sense?
The first and the third, I do have a conflict. The Derry Library meets the third Monday of the month.
Okay. So you'd miss every other? You'd miss every other meeting because of the library? Yes.
Every other meeting?
If you're meeting with the library on the third Monday of every month, that means you'd be at the first meeting of the month, right?
I can do the first,
Okay.
but not the third.
Okay. So the December 26th meeting, might as well bring it up now, January 2nd, 2023. No meeting.
January 2nd.
No meeting? Okay. So that means our first meeting for the new year would be on the 16th,
On what date?
January 16th.
Did he say the 16th?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's Martin Luther King Day.
Well, listen, Derry TV just put us in the, no, just kidding.
Do you want to just start it in February?
Can we start it in, well, we probably need to have one meeting in January. Okay, so our plan will be, we'll work it into the February transition point. So we'll start in February. Okay, so now let's amend what we just talked about. So yes, we're considering it strongly. So in January, our first meeting would then be the 9th. Okay, that's a yes. Then we'll play it by ear, pass there.
Fine.
Okay, good. Okay, last update for this evening. I know it's a shorter meeting tonight. Previously, Commissioner Boonstra had brought up some commentary about the rail trail, and so we had talked about reaching out to the state. Did you want to share where we're at in that process, sir?
Sure. So as reflected in the minutes, we talked about the wetlands impact of the Exit 4A project. And as we agreed, I wrote the DOT project chairman, Wendy Johnson, inviting her to come talk to us about the wetlands impact. She replied relatively quickly saying that she would get back to us with the information that we needed, even though we hadn't talked about what specifically we might need, but, and then we would decide whether we needed a meeting. I have not heard back from her since then, so I will write back and ask where we are on that.
Which wetlands is this?
So the one that we talked about at the meeting was the incursion of the rerouted rail trail into the 100-year floodplain under Shields Brook. So the rail trail is routed within the 100-year floodplain outside the 50-year floodplain. And so that's what we spent most of our time talking about. There are other wetlands impacts. There's one near the end of the project, near
Is that the one at Shenado and Chester Road?
No, the one by Chester.
Yeah. And that on the north side of that is a prime wetland. We discussed that last time.
Yep. So Bob's going to reach out again for correspondence, but in the interim, we did speak briefly before the meeting about also connecting and talking with Mr. Fowler here as well at the town to see if there's additional insight from him. There are some other groups that are actively involved that are going to be at meetings and doing some other things, and so we'll continue to monitor and keep eyes on the project. So, anything else from the board tonight?
Anything on the Butterfield property?
We have not heard back from the applicant on that project since the last time that you were here, in fact, and we had Luke Hurley from Gove and Shane.
Yeah.
Memory's good, but not that good.
But we haven't heard of it.
No miss. No miss. So we'll see if it makes it onto our agenda in the new year.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
With that, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Bob Boonstra motions. We have a second.
Seconded.
I'll give that one to Grace. I'll give that second to Grace. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, folks.
But that was, let's see.